Hello, everyone, and thank you again for checking out today's episode of Hardball Sports Talk. My name is Brandon, and joining me, like always, is my good friend Alex. Before I introduce Alex for real, though, he is a little bit under the weather, so if don't mind his raspy voice there. But we are troopers here. We've kind of missed a lot of shows lately, so we want to keep going for you guys. So, Alex, overall, how are you today?
Oh, Brandon, after that introduction, I feel great now.
You know, you're a trooper. We, like I said, it's all for the fans here, and
We
we're
do it for
both
the fans.
we do it for the fans. We do have a backup plan, but we're like, nope, we want this show today, so we're gonna do this show today. Uh, so the other day, we gave you guys a little bit of a teaser for our guest. Actually, yeah, we'll say guest because only one of them is confirmed right now. But we have two guests confirmed. We're hoping to get a third one. The first guest, obviously, as we've mentioned before, his name is Jeff. He is the host of a podcast called Rounders. If you guys have not gone out and listened to that yet, please do so. Uh, it's beneficial for both parties. This collaboration, he gets exposure in areas that he probably isn't known, and I get exposure in areas I'm really not known. It's very beneficial for both sides. So be sure to like him on his social medias. Look him up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Give him a listen. Really cool stuff. He has the most recent episode of his I've listened to. It's called A Baseball Autopsy, where he goes and he talks about a team that no longer exists. And this one was about the St. Louis Browns, which is a team I've heard of, but I've never known anything about them. So it was really cool listening. And actually, they are now the Baltimore Orioles. I did not know that. So, yeah. So give him a listen and be sure to tell him that Hardball Sports sent you, just so he knows, hey, that this is actually good for him too. And the other guest, we gave you a hint the other day, and I'm going to expand on that hint, and then we'll give you guys another hint. We said we were fanboying, and by that, if you've listened to this podcast with the both of us for any amount of time now, we love 90 sports movies. So he is involved in a 90 sports movie. That is basically the not fanboy hint from last week. We should have added on to that last week. I can't think. Without going too much into this, I'm trying to give another hint here.
Let's say don't ruin it yet.
Yeah. This is a safe one. It's not Mighty Ducks. It's actually a baseball movie. There was a lot of baseball movies in the 90s, so I think we'll be safe with that one. Obviously, a lot of my family and friends that I've in daily contact with know about this because, well, I'm making a post on my computer right now to announce this. So they were all looking at that last night. And two, I've been just so excited that I would basically, anytime I talk to anybody, I'm like, you'll never believe this. And
Right.
nobody, one of the people I was talking to last night was like, I love that movie. How'd you do that? I'm like, messaged him.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. Especially, I remember when the first time you told me we secured him. Well, potentially secured him. We're still working out the in and outs here, but when you told me that, I was like, no way did someone from that movie just say yes, come on to this podcast.
Yeah. So we are ecstatic. We are still working on a date to record with him. That show we will not be doing live. And again, we'll announce who these guests are in due time. But when we record, we're not going to do that one live. We'll probably release that episode shortly after we record with him, though. And like I said, there's potentially a second guest involved with this too, which we're really excited about that. Just based on the story, we'll explain, especially if the second guest happens, we're going to explain to you guys the story on how we got the second guest because it is absolutely crazy.
It's pretty awesome. And let's just say I'm glad I'm on this side of the camera and know how to start guessing the teasers and everything. But
yeah,
you keeping me in detail, it's awesome. And yeah.
So we are very happy for the future of the show. So with that in mind, though, we feel like this is about to take off. This show, partially because of the guest, partially because I think the content, the more we're doing this, is getting better. You guys might disagree with me on that, but I think overall we're both getting more comfortable in front of the microphone and in front of the camera. We're more sure in what we're saying. So, with all that being said, I think this show is getting a lot better, and I think it's going to take off here shortly. But it won't do that without your guys' help. So, what I need you guys to do is just go out and tell your friends and your family who like sports and say, hey, there's two guys that have fun and they talk sports. It's called Hardball Sports Talk. You should go give them a listen because it's a good time. It's clean. They keep it to sports mostly. Once in a while, we go down a rabbit trail, but even our rabbit trails somehow end up in sports. So, but we have a lot of fun here, and we want as many people as we can to enjoy this with us. So be sure to tell all those in your friend circle about us, and we greatly appreciate that. Also, have them like the Facebook page. Our goal is to have 500 likes on that by the 4th of July. That is the goal. So let's make that happen. But today, let's get going here. Our video on topic, or our show on topic, is about the NFL coaching hires and how we rank them. And we were debating on if we want to do A, B, C, D, or tier the ranking, or if we just wanted to rank from 8 to 1. We decided that we were going to do 8 to 1. So if you are watching on our YouTube or Facebook or on Twitch right now, I just turned on the bottom screen here the list of coaching hires. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I will read them out for you. Washington hired Dan Quinn, former Dallas Cowboy defense coordinator. Seattle hired Mike McDonald, who was the Ravens defensive coordinator. Atlanta hired Raheem Morris, who was the Rams defense coordinator. Carolina, Dave Canales, he was the Tampa Bay offensive coordinator. The Chargers went with Jim Harbaugh from the University of Michigan, their head coach. Las Vegas hired Antonio Pierce on a full-time basis. He was the interim coach last year, and he was also the linebackers coach. And then the Patriots hired Gerard Mayo. He was the linebackers coach with them last year. And Tennessee hired Brian Callahan, who was the Bengals offense coordinator. So those are the 8 hires we have this year. Before we get going on the hires, though, I did this a couple years ago, this exact show. And so I want to read to you my list from that ranking. There was 9 coaching hires. I would say I did okay. I missed on a couple, but I think I hit on a couple too, which I think everybody who does these rankings can say the exact same sentence. So there's very few people who ever hit 100% on this. So I feel overall I did pretty good here. So in the number 9 spot in the 2022 cycle, I had Lovie Smith. I think that is a fair assessment of that hire.
I agree.
Yeah. So when they hired him, I believe I said they basically just hired him because he was the only one there that really was available at that time. Because if I remember right, they waited too long to hire, and it was
Yeah.
Lovie Smith or basically nobody. And I said this is basically one of those hires. Why I don't know, but he's not going to last too long. And sure enough, he was gone after 1 year. At number 8, we have Josh McDaniels with Vegas. Again, I think that's now there's one name on this list that's probably number 8 in real life. But I think number 8 and with Josh McDaniels, I think all things considered, that's not a crazy take either. With Vegas, that he obviously got fired this past offseason, was not a success at all. At number 7, we have Matt Eberflus with the Bears. That one, I think it might be a little too low for him right now, but I don't think it's absolutely crazy either. The defense for Chicago has been decent, but nothing spectacular. And especially with the defensive-minded coach, you want that. And Justin Fields has improved, but he hasn't really taken that huge next step where he's going to be the face of your franchise. Now you are debating if you want to draft Caleb Williams or keep Justin Fields. So at number 6, I have Dennis Allen with the Saints. Again, I didn't really like that hire at the time, just because it felt like you're staying in-house, but at the same time, I guess staying in-house was probably the right move with Sean Payton retiring. But Dennis Allen, I believe, was a head coach with the Raiders, and it didn't really go well. And I didn't really have high expectations for him. So I think that's a fair assessment and fair placement for him still. The one of them I got wrong. I have Mike McDaniel with Miami at number 5. If I redid this now, I'd have him higher up. He's been spectacular with Tua and on that offense. At number 4, I have Kevin O'Connell with the Vikings. He's done an amazing job again this year. We talked about this last week. This year, they're probably a playoff team if Kirk Cousins does not go down. And
Yep.
last year, I won the division, so that's a great hire there. The one that probably got me in the most trouble was my number 3. Nathaniel Hackett with the Broncos. I absolutely loved that hire at the time. I remember there was YouTube videos the Broncos posted, and Hackett was on there, and I'm like, man, I love this guy. This guy's awesome. And then football happened, and he was not awesome. He lasted. I don't even know if he lasted the entire season. I know he got fired. I think he lasted the entire season. I fired him after the season. Number 2, I have Doug Peterson with the Jaguars. I think that might be a little too high for him now, but I mean, he hasn't been a terrible hire, but they've also
Right.
underperformed a little bit too.
Yeah.
And then at number 1, I have Brian Daboll with the Giants. For a second there, that looked like a great take. This past season, though, it has not looked like a great take. So overall, I would give myself probably a 75 or an 80 or C plus. To be honest with you,
His
think I
passing.
did good. Yeah, it's passing, but it's not like valedictorian levels or anything like that. So moving on now to this year's coaching hires. There's 6 of them. And so what we'll just do is we'll both say who our number 6 is, and then number 5, and so forth. So
There's
I
6
will.
of 'em? I have
Oh,
I
there's
have
8
8
of them.
of them.
Yeah, there's 8. Excuse me. Yeah, there's 8.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
where'd you get
No, I'm
6
sorry.
from?
There's 8.
Okay,
Yeah.
don't scare me like that.
No, I scared myself.
Yeah.
So there's 8 of them. So who is your 8th or your worst hire in your mind?
It would have to be, in my opinion, Mayo of the New England Patriots. The fact that they're keeping it in-house. This dude's only known and played one way, and that was the Belichick way. And as Lions fans, we know, if you're coming from the Belichick tree, it's probably not going to work out for you.
I also have Mayo towards the bottom of my list. I do not have him at 8, though. I have Brian Callahan with Tennessee at 8. So I have a couple pros with him. I did some research on all these guys. The number 1 pro I have is Joe Burrow. He was obviously in the room when Joe Burrow was drafted and developed, so he probably had some say in that. And the other pro I have, he was the QB coach in Detroit in 2016 and 2017. Stafford threw 10 interceptions each season. 10 interceptions each season, excuse me. For him, that was the only full 2 seasons in his career where he only threw 10 interceptions or less. There were seasons he threw less, but he didn't play the entire 16 season. So those are the 2 pros for me. The con is I see Nathaniel Hackett here. And I just obviously went on when we gave our rankings there. But the reason why this is giving me Hackett vibes is because Nathaniel Hackett was the offense coordinator with the Packers, and he left the Packers to become the head coach of the Broncos. And when he did that, he basically said, "Here, I don't draw my own plays. I don't call my own plays. All I basically do is help with protection and stuff." And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, there's still value there. I'm not saying there isn't. But now you're going to an offense where you're basically supposed to be the guy who knows the offense. Well, you've never designed your own offense, and you've never called your own plays. That's kind of how I feel about Brian Callahan here. I'm a little hesitant on this hire. And so that's why I have it at number 8. We'll go rotate back and forth, so I'll do number 7 first. My number 7 is Gerard Mayo. And it's basically the exact same reasons as you. The pros, the only one I could really find that I think is a good pro is that he is a former player, so he might be able to relate to the players a little bit more than Belichick was able to. But like you said, it's the exact same coaching tree as Belichick. He hasn't played for any coach in the NFL besides Belichick. So I guess the question is he going to try to be a mini Belichick like McDaniels tried or Patricia tried, or is he going to try to do his own thing and create his own culture? That is the question. And so far with Belichick coaching hires, really the only one off the top of my head that really worked was O'Brien with Houston. But outside of that, it really has been a bunch of failures. So that is why it is my number 7. How about you? What is your number 7?
Mine is actually might be shocking, but Raheem Morris, who was the defensive coordinator for the Rams. This is his, I believe it's his second stint as their coach.
Yeah.
But he was the intern, I think, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So he was the intern, and in that season, I think he went 4-7. I'd have to look that up. I might have saw that different number. But anyways, he's had from I think 09 to 11 was his first like full coaching, and he only went 17-31 in that season, and that was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I believe. Um, I just have him as my number 7 right now.
Yeah. And then go ahead. What's your number 6 coaching hire?
That would be Dan Quinn. Yeah, he took the Atlanta Falcons to the Super Bowl. And it's, well, on this date, by the way, I'm throwing this in there. It was the 28-3. By the way, I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, I didn't know it was today, but I knew that was the team.
Yeah, he was the Atlanta Falcons coach. They blew a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl. With him, he is an average coach. He is right now. I think when I looked it up, he was 43-42, so he's barely above 500 as a head coach. In that defense, he had a lot of talent, but he still ended up losing to the Packers with that defense that was supposed to carry him to the championship game at least.
Yeah, the whole season, I won't say where I have Dan Quinn ranked, but my notes on him, the running defense was his Achilles heel. Is that something he's gonna be able to fix in Washington?
Yeah,
My number 6, I have Raheem Morris. For basically the same reasons you do. Actually, I have a couple different things, but I do have the note about him being the interim in Atlanta. The players that are still there seem really excited that he's back, so I put that as a pro because I think the players actually liked him. The biggest con I have is the Sean McVay defense coordinators going to become head coaches has not worked so far. Most recently being Brandon Staley with the Chargers. So, and Sean McVay, he's an offensive mind, and I think what I could be wrong, but I know he did this with Wade Phillips. He basically said, "Here, the defense is yours. I'll take care of the offense." So when you're a defense coordinator for the Rams, you're already halfway of head coach, kind of.
right.
So that the fact that didn't work very well with Brandon Staley is a little concerning for me for this hire. And like you said, he didn't do so great with Tampa Bay. And now when you're an interim coach in a situation, I don't put that record fully on you because there's a reason the other coach got fired.
Yeah.
So number 5, I wanted to put this one higher. I really did because I actually love this hire. Dave Canales. I think it's a home run hire. I think they got the right guy.
That is also my number 5, by the way.
Yeah. So I have a quick pro and a quick con, and I'm gonna go in a little bit on both of them. The pro I have for him is Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield had a very great year this year. His career was basically almost done. Basically, he was basically on his last leg. This year was a make or break it year, and he had a great year. And you have to give credit to the coaching staff there for putting plays in place for him and putting him in situations to succeed. Learning what your player wants to do and is good at. That's great coaching. And so having a quarterback like Bryce Young, who had a terrible rookie year, let's just be honest with ourselves, it was a terrible rookie year. But you have so much invested in him that you can't, obviously you're not going to go up after 1 year either. So you bring in somebody that just revived the career of Baker Mayfield, and you're hoping he can do the same exact thing with your quarterback. And you know what? I think he could. The issue is, who's your owner in Carolina right now? David Tepper. That's why I can only put this at 5 because I don't trust Tepper keeping him around. I think if something goes south, like for example, like this is the comparison I'm going to give you is Dan Campbell. If something like Dan Campbell happens where the team loses the first 10 games or whatever it was the Lions lost that year,
Yeah.
Sheila Ford Hamp was very patient and said, nope, this is who we want. I feel it. This is the right guy. Year two, they start out 1-6 or something like that before they get going. And sure enough, give him the guy a couple years and he's there. I don't know if David Tepper will do that. That's why, and I think you might need a year or two there. And I just don't know if he's got that kind of cushion with this owner. This owner's very trigger happy with firing his coaches. So that is why I want to put him at higher, but I just can't because I don't trust the owner. So that's part of the equation is the owner for me.
Yeah, that's also why I have him at number 5. Being a first time head coach and whatnot, but when you have an owner, like you've been saying, that's trigger happy, who hasn't really helped out his team at all, other than replacing the coaches and trying to replace the quarterback every time. It's just hard to rank a guy higher than that. So he's also my number 5.
You're number 4.
Number 4, I actually put Brian Callahan there. I know what you're talking about with Joe Burrow and all that. Yeah, Tennessee is probably not going to be good. They're probably going to be losing Henry to free agency. They don't really have a quarterback there. But I think you got to give a guy time. And I like what he did when he was had Burrow as his QB. I think you give him time to develop, whether it's Levis or Willis, right? I think it's Malik Willis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, those two guys, he'll know who he wants, and who knows, maybe they'll go out and draft another quarterback in the upcoming draft. But he is my number 4.
My number 4 is Dan Quinn. So I basically don't like him for the exact same reasons you don't like him. The only thing was I had to give him ahead of Raheem Morris because he's been to the Super Bowl, brought a team there. And like I said, Dave Canales, I want to put higher. I just can't because I don't trust the owner keeping him around long enough. So Dan Quinn by default landed in my top 4, but he is not a top 4 head coaching hire. That's where I had to put him. The pro obviously landed to a Super Bowl. The cons, the first con I put is 28-3, and that's all I'm going to say there. Second con is, yeah, Dallas's defense has been great, but how much of it was on Quinn's scheme, and how much of it was having great players like Micah Parsons on your team. Also, like I mentioned when you were talking about Dallas, their run defense has been their Achilles heel. And when you got it in your division, now you're in Washington, and your division has, Swift and all those running backups in Philly. You got Saquon. Dallas likes to run the ball a little bit anyways. So you have 3 teams that will try to run the ball on you. And they probably will because your defense has not been able to prove to stop the run. And the team that you're inheriting has a lot of holes on basically the entire roster. They do have a lot of cap space, though, and they also have a high draft pick. So there's hope for the roster, but I just don't know if you got the coaching hire right. This was also a little rabbit trail here. This was also the spot that Ben Johnson was supposed to go to. There was reports basically the week of Tampa Bay's playoff game against the Lions, I think it was, where I saw these reports that Ben Johnson was the favorite for this job. Well, apparently, now I have no idea how true this was, but apparently Ben Johnson did not like the owners, and the Commanders' interview didn't go well with Ben Johnson. Apparently he didn't interview well. So selfishly, as a Lions fan, I hope he doesn't interview well for any head coaching hire because the guy can call an offensive game. But that is something to look into, or not look into, I guess, but look at when we're going next year into the coaching hires, as that can be an issue again next year. Moving on though to number three. My number three is Mike McDonald going to Seattle. Um, my pro, he's a really good defensive mind, and Seattle's culture has always been defense and run the ball. That's just how they've always operated there. I mean, even before, well, I guess when Pete Carroll got there with Sean Alexander, or I think that's when he got there when they beat the no, it was not Sean Alexander, it was Beast Mode. I'm thinking
Yeah.
him against
Marshawn Lynch.
yeah, against the Saints
Yeah.
when they basically everyone said they don't need a home playoff game. They only won 7 games, and then Beast Mode comes into play and basically starts throwing Saints around. That's always been their identity under Pete Carroll, and that's Pete Carroll is still in the building, so I think this is a Pete Carroll hire.
Yeah.
The con uh, is the OC. As of right now, last I checked, they don't have an OC. This is a young coach who's defensive minded. The offensive coordinator is going to be the most important part of this hire, especially if Seattle has Geno Smith. If they want to go with a different quarterback in the draft, if they want to try to get another Russell Wilson in the 3rd round or something like that, you're going to need a good OC to develop the quarterback. So that is the biggest worry for me with these defensive coaches hires, especially, is who's going to be your OC. How about you? Who's your number 3?
Yeah, I also have Mike McDonald. That's my number 3. Kind of along the lines of what you're saying. He's a great defensive-minded coach. He's proven that the last couple of years with the Ravens. The other con is he's going to be the youngest coach at 36 and a first-time coach.
See, I don't see that as much of a con. Sorry to interrupt you,
No, you're
but you
good. Go
could.
ahead.
Sean McVay was also the youngest coach at one point in his life, and now I understand he's an offensive genius, but this could be the defensive version of Sean McVay. I'm
Okay.
not saying he is. I'm just saying when you have a young defense coach, that's what you're looking for is the defensive Sean McVay. That's what
Yeah.
Seattle's looking for here.
Well, it's also his first time coaching ever, but he does come from a great tree. And I guarantee you it's going to be about defense and running the ball because that's what he's learned from the 2 previous head coaches he coached under, and both Hardball
Yep.
brothers.
Yep.
My number two,
Well,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Oh,
Oh, you go ahead.
okay. My number 2, I kind of been talking about him this whole season as we were talking about the Raiders. Antonio Pierce is number 2. Um, Removing the interim and making him the full-time head coach. He's one of the guys that the players rally around to win some games. He also stopped Max Crosby for asking for a trade because he got hired, if that rumor was true or not.
Which I'm
And
sure
it
it
looks
was.
Yeah, and it looks like Al Davis didn't screw this one up like they did the last time when they
Mark Davis. Al Davis passed away.
Mark Davis. Sorry, thank you.
Yeah.
They all look the same, so but yeah,
I don't think Al Davis looks like Mark Davis, but okay.
anyways, he's my number 2.
So he's also my number 2, and it's basically for the exact same reasons as you. The players loved him. They played hard for him. It was a team that was hungry under him, under McDaniels. I mean, we saw it as Lions fans against the game against us. That team looked flat. They looked like they didn't care what was going on. They like Max Crosby really was the only player on that team that gave a rat's butt of what was going on. Everybody else though, they were just like whatever, and it felt like they were just there to get a paycheck. Like that's honestly what it felt like. I think they absolutely hated McDaniels. And then Antonio Pierce comes in and he can relate to these players at levels that a Patriots coach cannot. And he was able to get the season turned around and got them within a game or 2 of the playoffs. So obviously keeping him around was the right choice. My only concern with him, same concern I had with McDonald, is who you can hire as OC. And when I was studying for this episode the other day, at that time, it looked like Cliff Kingsbury was going to be jumping on board, but that is no longer the case. Now he is rumored to be going to Washington. to join Dan Quinn. So, who do you bring on board to help with your offense? That is the big question for Antonio Pierce, because that offense last year, that the team played hard, but that offense was still very not great.
Yeah, especially
So,
when you have a good wide receiver in Devontae Adams.
yeah. And then obviously, process of elimination. I promise you, we did not uh, do this list together. Our lists are very similar. We are very similar minded people, though, so I'm not shocked by this. But we have the same number one for our favorite head coach hire, and that would be Jim Harbaugh for the Chargers. I think this is a match made in heaven, especially with the young quarterback and Justin Herbert. Jim Harbaugh's always had success. If you can get him a good quarterback, he's gonna win you games. You saw it in San Francisco. I mean, Alex Smith, he was the number one overall pick, and then you got Kaepernick, who brought a different element to him, and he was able to win with those two. And then obviously at Michigan, once he got JJ in there, he got a national championship. Now I know there's other factors that certain people that listen to our show like to bring up, but I mean, yeah, JJ helped him along the way. So my big things here though, my big pro, like I said, would be Herbert and Harbaugh's relationship with quarterbacks in the past and him culture building. So track record. My con with him is also track record, because everywhere he goes, there's conflict. And I understand you got big egos and it's not always on Harbaugh. But the way I see it is if you have problems everywhere you go, you're probably part of the problem. I'm not saying you're the only one with the problem, but you're part of the problem. So will he be able to get along with people is my concern. And how long before he's not getting along with people? That's my one concern with Harbaugh, and it'll be everyone's concern with Harbaugh, I think. So, uh, what are your reasons for Harbaugh being at number one?
I mean, basically like what you said, the track record, the FCS school of San Diego, he turned around, led them to title or their conference title, whatever it was there. Stanford, who only won, I think, like one game before he got there, turned them around into a good program, and beat Pete Carroll, I think, 2 or 3 times as major underdogs at Stanford, and that was when Pete Carroll had USC as a powerhouse. Then he goes to San Fran, who took him to, I believe, 3 straight NFC title games. And then he goes to his alma mater, Michigan. Now, granted, it did take him a while to get things turned around, but he got it turned around, led him to 3 straight wins over Ohio State, 3 straight Big Ten titles, and a national champion. And you're right about the track record of him and the ownership slash his bosses of conflicts with Michigan, especially this year with Warren Manuel. There's a lot of headbutting, and he probably felt like he wasn't getting the protection that he wanted or that he thought he deserved. And then back in San Fran, there was later on, it was with the owners and GMs there too, kept heading buds or button heads. So I think you're right about the conflict between them all.
So that is all we have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. Be sure to like us on Facebook, Spotify. Links for all that is in the description. If not yet, subscribe to whatever platform you're listening on. It does help. Leave us a review. Helps the algorithm a lot. If you have any questions, comments, leave them in the comment section or email us at hardballsportstalk@gmail.com. I believe that is also in the description, the email there. Wednesday, we are going to do our preview for the Chiefs 49ers game on Sunday for the title in the NFL. We'll do that. I don't know if that'll be a full-length episode, though. So I'll talk to Alex about this, but I might throw something else on there for you guys just so it's more than a 10-minute show. But also depends on how he's feeling, too. So Thank you guys so much for checking us out. I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and we will talk to you guys on Wednesday.